Hi, everybody. It's Jimmy. Just joined.
Hi, Jimmy. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We'll be starting in a few minutes. Dr. Walker, just let us know when you're ready, okay?
I'm good whenever you guys are.
Great. Ms. Jones, are you there? Or you're mobile?
I'm mobile, but I'm here. Good evening, everyone, and thanks and welcome to day 3 of our boot camp series. And we have, I can't believe it's always day 3 and with one more to go. I know it's been a jam-packed, exciting. I've heard a lot of comments, feedback. So Dr. Walker, they've been excited about your content. We want to keep in mind muting yourself at all times, remembering that if you want to have a question or you want to make a comment, you can place it in the chat or raise your hand. And also, we would like for you to have your video on, and I must apologize, but I'm in transit, so I'll put my video on anyway, just to say that, hey, I'm gonna follow the rules as well. And fourth. What's the fourth one? I always miss one.
Recording.
We're
Yeah.
recording. Vet, welcome. It's your first day, and we are excited to have you. It's never too late. So if you can just do a brief introduction, tell us your name and what your company is or your company you're desiring to start up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vet. I'm not dressed appropriately, so if it's okay, I beg to please keep my video off. I'll do better the next time. But my name is Vet. That's short for Yvetta. And the name of my business is Greener Me. I just found out that I was supposed to file some papers that I haven't filed yet, so I may not still be in business. That's something I'm going to have to address within the next week or so. But the focus of my company is a better health consultation company with a focus on green plants.
Interesting.
What was the name of the business
And
again?
thank you. Well,
Greener Me, the color
Green.
greener me.
Okay. Huh, interesting. Great. Real great to meet you, even if it's virtual.
Thank you. Likewise. I'm looking forward to learning.
Well, that's what we try to do here.
That-
I even
that-
had my own lesson just a few minutes ago with tech issues. So it's we're all learning.
now,
Hi. I guess I'm next. My name is Jimmy. I don't have a business. I'm a grad student at GW, going for my master's degree in cybersecurity strategy and information. And you know, I want to take a leap of faith and open up my own, you know, nonprofit. You know, I want to give back to the community. I want to help them. You know, there's a team in California, especially both northern. There's a huge homeless issue, you know, that's going on. So, you know, I think it's a good timing with Biden signing, you know, or passing some of the bills or whatnot. You know, it's a good opportunity to get in if I can. So, the issue is, you know, it's like catch-22. They want a small business that has a track record. And, you know, how do you get a track record? You never started, right? So that's all. but I'm gonna go off video, kind of camera shy, and I'm doing stuff, eating and doing stuff in the background and walking with. It's okay.
Okay. Good to meet you, Jimmy.
Nice to meet you guys.
You got all the intros done, Monica?
I believe we have all the intros. Everyone else, I believe Andrea. Was Andrea with us on Tuesday, last Thursday? I mean?
No, I was not.
Yeah, I was looking at my list. Yeah, Andrea's name.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm Andrea Hart. I live in right outside of DC in Maryland, in Silver Spring. I saw this, I didn't notice the email until this weekend, so I missed the first two Zoom meetings, but I'm not sure what else I'm sharing. My interest in this is exploring stepping into the small business world, stepping out of the employee world and trying to just see what I need to do. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well, welcome. So the first two sessions were recorded, so you can always go back and
Great.
check it out. Yeah. And we have the rest of the summer, we have 2 more boot camps. One is going to do a deep dive in marketing, and I think the third is a deep dive in financials and planning. So this is an entry into more stuff throughout the summer. We kind of spaced it out to give everybody time to digest everything. So hang in with us all summer. We'll have a lot of fun.
Thanks, I will.
And Andrea, if you drop your email address in the chat, I'll be sure to send you all of the PowerPoint slides from the last 2 sessions, as well as how you can watch the video.
Okay. Now.
Thank you.
Great.
BT, and I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, it's good to see everybody, the new and returning folks back to the session. Today is our 3rd out of a 4 series on owners and operations. Today, we're going to continue our discussion on customer product related systems, but it's going to focus a little bit more on the infrastructure that supports a lot of the things we discussed last week in terms of marketing and sales and branding, research and development. So I will make this announcement now. Welcome. This is an example of what happens in the business world. So I use an external app to design my presentation. And I think they're headquartered in California. And they recently did an update while I was typing, and they had a crash in their system. Now, luckily, they emailed me, immediately. But as a result, some of my PowerPoints are a little funky because they had to send it to me. So, but I'll have discussions with them later. But just to let you know, no matter what happens, the show must go on. So I will say that. Let me just share my screen. Walden or Monica, can you give me permission, please? I will also say, true transparency, I do have a learning disability, so inevitably I will always have some grammar or spelling mistake, no matter what I do. If I have a lot of advance warning, I usually send my content off for advanced editing to rectify that. But I have a very nasty habit of revising my presentation like the hour before the presentation, because the ideas come to me and I always make a change because I always wanted to be better for who I'm talking to. So that's my story. So I say that to say, if you have had any challenges in your life, you can harness that to be an entrepreneur. It is not a deficit. In fact, it adds to you. Because I can spot some stuff, because I got another brain working on stuff that has aided me in my career. So let's go here. Get the slideshow going. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep, perfect,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
I gotta move the stuff out the way. I won't be able to see everybody, so please use the chat and the reaction button to let me know if you have a question or you want to comment to others. Please share your experiences as well during this presentation. So Again, highlighting our sponsors and hosts, Congress ICDC, Department of Small Business Local Development, and DHCD. This is your tax dollars coming back to you. So please make sure you acknowledge them and when you get a chance. This is for the newcomers. This is a little background about me. When you get the slides, you can read all about that. It's a lot of yada, yada, yada. 20 years, 400 plus businesses, 30 million in some kind of funds that I've been responsible for. And I've been a professor in the field that I'm actually teaching with. So there you go. We've been through introduction, so wonderful. And for those of you, because we have newcomers to the platform, if you have a website or social media, please share your business. We like to support small businesses and we like to share amongst everybody participating. So no shame here if you want to plug your business. So far we've covered all about the business owner. We're now on customer and product related systems. This is part 2 of that. And then on Thursday, we'll wrap up with data and financial systems. This is our agenda for the day. So we can have a little brief introductory discussion like we did last time and recap what we discussed last week. And then we're going to go into facility and technology. And for the sake of this presentation, I merged technology and communication because it really does go together. And then we'll wrap up with management and personnel, health and wellness. And because I am a physician, I come at this from a different point of view. So, but you're welcome to make commentary. Health is wealth, and you got to be healthy to do this stuff. Okay. All right. For those of you who just joined us, with the last 2 sessions, part of our open discussion has been about indicating the reason you're starting a business. There are a lot of articles of why you should start a business, but very few documentation of the exact reasons why. And so I found this article a couple of years ago. So the link is provided, so please download it. I think you can get it for free. So there's 4 categories. We have the passionate creators, the freedom seekers, legacy builders, and the struggling survivor of financial needs. So they started because they had an issue they had to address. And some of us have been in that boat, but the others had more of a purpose. One, the passionate folks, that is at the core of them of why they want to start a business. The freedom seekers, they want to have more control on their lives. And then the legacy builders are all about whatever I do to bring something new to the market, what can I make, what personal achievement can I make with that? And so just take a minute. For those of you returning and new, returning folks, let me know if you have changed or not, your position. And then for the new folks, take a look and see if any of these categories stand out to you. We'll let a minute or so go by.
Are we writing this in the chat or we're just saying it out loud?
You can just say out loud or put in the chat.
Okay, I'm number 1 and 4. I'm both, I guess.
1 and 4. Okay, I'm gonna make you choose.
If I had to, 4, I can always pick up. So it just takes some time. So I would say 1. It's like time's running out, right? You want to do something before your life passes, and something meaningful at least, or something instead of going to the grind every day and bringing home a paycheck. You want to. I don't know. I'm a single parent. I have a 6-year-old. So.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell her, yeah, Daddy did this. Versus.
Right. So is it passion or is it legacy?
I would say passion.
Okay. All right.
I want to solve some issues in the world, or provide something so that someone else can solve the issue, but provide the utilities or tools or something, like.
Okay, we'll take that. Anybody else? And Baldwin, can you let us if any chat notices, because I won't be able to see it. Andrea and Vet, the new folks, what are you thinking? Any thoughts yet or no?
This is Andrea. I'm actually thinking about number 2. I just I'm ready to work for myself, and I am no longer like the money, the politics, the drama of working for an organization no longer appeals to me, even though I know there's, drama in politics involved in working for yourself, but it's
Right.
there's a difference when you control it and when you have passion behind it. So I don't think that you can have any of these without having the other things there. But if I had to pick, I would say for me, it's the freedom to control the work and the freedom to, be in charge of what I deliver to a client.
Okay, all right, that's great. I'm trying to see my tally here. So the freedom seekers are in the lead. I think we got like 3.5. One person couldn't choose, so and we got like 2 passionate maybe and 1 legacy. So okay, I'm gonna push back on something regarding the passion. You do not necessarily have to have passion to start and run a business. All right. I think that has been said a lot in our media, and we have bought into it because sometimes starting a business in an area that you're passionate about may ruin the passion. Okay. What you have to think about, what are your gifts and talents that you can demonstrate through your business, and what will get you up every day to do that work. It doesn't necessarily have to be the passion for the product or the skill that you're exhibiting. So just keep that in mind, because I am not necessarily passionate about what I do. And many things that we're passionate about can be relegated as a hobby, and that's perfectly fine too. So just think about it. But this will come up in our planning discussion on Thursday, because I'm gonna show you how we use this to be part of your business planning. Okay, great. So last time we talked about the 4 Ps of marketing. And so I like to collect a lot of advertising, a lot of things that I get from other companies, just so I can use as illustrations. So this particular slide is an example of a email I got from Polo Ralph Lauren. So if you guys can recall what we talked about for the 4 Ps being product, price, place, and promotion. Tell me if you can identify the 4 Ps just from this email message. I give you a moment to take it all in. Few more seconds. Anybody got an idea? Any thoughts? There's no wrong answers. Just want to see your thought from one session on marketing. I just want to see where we are. Anybody got thoughts on the 4 Ps? What does this tell you?
I don't see price, but I see product. It's Ralph Lauren, right? And
Yeah, but what's the product?
products, the custom polo made to order.
Okay, so there's the custom polo. Excellent. What else?
Product, price, promotion is made to order, and design your own made to order, and 1 3 weeks delivery.
So the promotion is the outlet you use to reach the people.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be made to order. What I gave you, the answer is in the slide. I'll say that hint.
Which slide? In here? The one we're looking at?
Yeah, one we're looking at.
And
Look at
what's
the entire slide.
It's an email.
There we go.
Oh.
Bingo. Who said that? Teamwork makes the dream work. Yes. So the promotion was via email because they had my contact information. They had some history on my buying patterns, right? So they sent me this email. Not everybody gets the same information because they're targeting that message, that marketing message, the branding message to their customer. But the other thing you said, Jimmy, that was absolutely on point, there is no price. That is part of their strategy because they position themselves to be this a classic American fashion house, right? The upscale, but sometimes casual when necessary. And so price is not a factor to their customers. So it's not something they put into this email. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is just an example. They didn't put all their products. They just did a snapshot of one particular product line. So I just want to illustrate, you don't have to advertise everything all the time. You can be very purposeful of how you use your marketing dollars. Okay. Now I got a second one, and we'll take a minute on this. This is from Mr. Cooper, a mortgage company. I wanted to give you a little variety so you don't get locked into just the retail folks, retail stuff. I'll give a few more seconds and then if anybody wants to start, feel free.
I'll
So who can tell
start.
me the 4 Ps? Yes, go ahead. Yep.
As for the price, it appears to be free. It's a service, a courtesy service. And what the product is he's going to pre-qualify you for a mortgage. And his promotion is.
Did you mean to go on mute just now? I'm sorry. We might have lost
I
you.
did.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead.
You can qualify with 4 easy questions. He's very supposedly respectful of your time. It's easy. All you have to do is click the button below and you can
Okay.
get your pre-qualifying letter.
Okay, very good. Anybody else got any thoughts to add to that? Okay, so let me just add a couple of things to what you said, okay? So yes, this is promoting the service, even though their real product or the end item that people would typically associate with a mortgage company would actually be the loan. There's no such thing as courtesy service. It's all part of the customer experience to provide value. And remember last time I said that all products if you sell a product, an end item, you're also gonna provide services because a lot of product-based businesses forget the service element. So in this particular promotion, they are highlighting just one part of the customer journey that they want to bring to my attention. So this was also an email. So that's the promotion. The price, it is free, but it requires my time, right? So you always got to think about the time element, even though there might not be a monetary. And so, yes, the end item might be a pre-qualification letter, but the actual service they're offering is that click to pre-qualify. That's what they're selling. And the value, as Vet indicated, would be like how easy it is, how quick it will be, and just so that eliminates that from your mind of hesitation of looking for a loan at this time. Is this helpful to you to understand how marketing, you can get really creative with your marketing and how you can use it as a vehicle to grow your business? Even though you've only had one session, we haven't even gotten to the marketing boot camp, but was this helpful?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we'll do more examples in the other boot camp as well. And we'll bring this all together when we talk about the planning. Okay?
Well, I have a question before we move on. So marketing, like there was some market disruptor, I guess you can call it, or they changed the way of marketing, like Tesla when they sold the electric cars, right? Because these seem more like a push email or a push marketing. And then,
Okay, marketing is what we're gonna get to, hold on, you know what, we're gonna get to the definition of marketing. But marketing is everything you do to communicate your value
okay,
to the customer.
okay,
So it's not not necessarily the business card, the email. It's how you are positioning yourself
Got
and
it.
how you're messaging to your customer.
got
So
it.
Tesla
Uh-huh.
presented to a very outdated industry a new value proposition to customers. And
Yeah.
so when you look at their marketing, they're highlighting these new things they are bringing to the auto industry. But
Mhm.
not everybody is their target market.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to have a sense of wanting something new to feel prestigious.
Mhm.
And secondarily, you might have some interest on saving energy and being proactive.
I was thinking more of the lines of how they got the message to the customer, right? I mean, it seemed like there was a lot of pooling of information, meaning the customer, heard about it, they went and they pulled, they went to the site versus, it was pushed to them like, through TV ads and, computer
Well,
ads.
that's Tesla now. When they started, even
Uh-huh.
particularly in the DC area, and I know this because they worked with the DC Chamber of Commerce when they first got to town, and I used to work at the chamber. The unique thing about Tesla in their model, and that you can see in their marketing, is
Uh-huh.
that they don't have the traditional dealerships.
Yeah,
They had storefront retail outlets.
I remember seeing them in the mall.
Right. And so they were introducing themselves initially to this area to a lot of business people. Because one, it's a certain price point. It's
Yeah.
not for everybody. And so when they came to the DC Chamber of Commerce, they had the car at the event. They were like, we'll schedule you for a ride and a tour. I was like, really? I was like, ain't no engine in it. And I was still stuck.
Yeah.
I was stuck in the old way, but they completely changed a lot of that. I'm
Okay.
going to use Tesla in the marketing boot camp, but
Okay.
you are hitting upon how companies can go about presenting themselves and
Yeah.
telling their message differently.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Walker.
No problem. So let's recap what we've covered so far. So we've covered what's the difference between an owner and a manager. And then that manager is that day-to-day, and that management is a practice. We covered what is entrepreneurship and how we all can be entrepreneurs, whether we're starting a business or working on our jobs. We covered the entrepreneurial process today, and that goes from idea generation, opportunity evaluation, planning, company formation, launch, and then growth. And we discussed how this is a continuous loop, that you always have to go back to step one for idea generation and opportunity evaluation. But we'll talk more about that when we get to planning on Thursday. We talked about how there's a model of managing, and if you're going to be the owner, operator, entrepreneur, you have to realize that you're managing a lot of elements at the same time, and that's your responsibility to frame the work, schedule the work, manage information, people, and the actions that need to be carried out to get the work of the business done. We talked about how business is made up of various systems, and they're all interrelated. At the center of it, from my perspective, and there's different variations of how people will present this, legal is at the center. You can't do anything until you have the legal setup correct, which will lead you down your licensing, your business registration, and then you start thinking about security, record keeping. All of that comes under legal and compliance. And legal influences all of the rest of the systems, which we will discuss more today for communication and technology, management of personnel, and health and wellness, along with facility. So as a result of all of those systems that make up a business itself is a system simply made up of other systems. And once we're able to identify the systems, we're able to able to define our way of getting the work done, because that's the hard part. But if you don't have it organized in such a way, it can become overwhelming. And I define a business as an operation that provides a product and or service with a customer experience to a customer or set of customers. As a result, the business will collect a payment in a timely and efficient way. So in this cycle, there are many interacting systems that are going on simultaneously to make this happen. And as a result of these collective systems working together and efficiently, you're providing products and services with a customer experience, and that experience, along with the actual product and service, has a certain value to the customer, and we call it the value proposition. And so that value proposition is what the business promises to deliver to the customer. And it's always from the customer's point of view. It's not how good we think our products and services are, is what the customer feels that our product and service has value to them. And so I gave you a cheat sheet of an article I produced a while ago of 30 categories of value. So I highly recommend you download this article because it can eliminate a lot of time and focus you and trying to figure out which of these value areas that my product and service is really tapping into. And it can be multiple. And you could start in one area, and then over time, you might say, I wanted to expand into other things. For instance, since our good friend Jimmy brought up Tesla has, started with a certain quality, right? But it also has a design aesthetic. That's a big part of its value proposition. And now there's some sort of badge of honor that we carry around if you do own a Tesla, because it also gives you a sense of community, because it's a unique group that are going to buy not just any electric vehicle, but a Tesla. And so your business can expand in terms of how the product is received into other areas of value. Some you will create, and some will just be organic because you've got enough customers and you got enough feedback. We talked about if those are the elements of value, we have to make a product in our product production system. Not only do we have to make the product, we have to inventory it, store it, as well as decide on a distribution channel, meaning getting the product to the customer. And to aid all of that activity, we have marketing. And here's the definition I use regularly. It's from the American Marketing Association. Defining it as a set of activities, institution, processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging value to customers, clients, partners, society at large, etc. So everything you do from a marketing point of view is to be centered around making sure your customer understands, appreciates, gets in tune with, buys into the value you're offering them with your product and service. And from there, we said, okay, that's marketing. Then branding is kind of like the visual part of extension of the marketing. And we talked about the 12 brand archetypes. And some of you might have started to think about your brand so far. For those who are in business, or those of you who were at this last week, did you have any idea of what you think your brand personality might be or archetype might be, just from the readings of the presentation? Any thoughts on that? You guys still mulling it over? You're not sure yet?
Are you talking about these words that are on the
Yeah.
the wheel?
Out of these categories, which are also demonstrated here, this just provides a little bit of information about the core of that particular brand personality. So innocent, sage, explorer, outlaw, magician, hero, lover, jester, everyman, caregiver, ruler, or creator. I will tell you. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, Yeah, I wasn't here last week, but I would say just looking at these and looking at the brands associated, I would identify more with WWF and Target. So 9 and 10, I guess.
So you're
But
everyman and caregiver?
other than that, I'm just looking at the labels.
So you bring up one point I wanna bring to everybody's attention. Is it your perspective or is it the business's personality?
I mean, we should be looking,
Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say ideally it should be the brands. But
It's the
It's-
business personality. Would you still say caregiver and everyman?
yeah, because of the field that I'm in, I think it would be because I'm all about compliance and reporting. And so I can't do that if I don't care about, you know, I don't care about making sure that the organizations that I'm working with do what they need to do, then I'm not really that caregiver. And that everyman is because the work can be complex depending on if I think about the kind of entities or smaller organizations that I would be working with, they don't have the resource capacity. So it would
Right.
be upon me to be that caregiver and to provide that everyman kind of like, you know, this is what you need to do. And these are some resources and how you can get it done.
Okay, I'm gonna challenge you on that and we'll see how it happens at the end of the next boot camp.
To an extent.
No, because you're still saying what you will do versus what the business's personality. And that's the hard part. You're hitting upon the challenge of building a brand. You have to separate yourself from the business. Or if you're going to base the business on your own personality, that's a whole other set of risks that comes along with it. You really have to figure out what the brand expression really connects with the value you're providing to the customer. Can
Okay.
you guess what my brand personality would be? You only know me for like, what, 20 minutes, but my company, I use the moniker, the trade name as Work, and it's by BP Walker, so I go by my initials, but
Mhm.
business-wise, I'm Work by BP. So can you guess? Just by looking at this.
Work by, I'd probably say, I don't know, outlaw or creator.
Good one, good guess. Anybody else want to guess? That's a good guess. No other guesses? So my brand for the company that I've chosen is Hero. Why? Because the perspective that I use to deliver business training and consulting is from a point of mastery. That is the core of how the business operates, is how do we get people to understand more about whatever the topic is, because I present on as in terms of a business entity, I present on a lot of topics. Now I do overlap with the magician sometimes, because I'm all about making things possible as a business that might be impossible. But it took me a good 6 months to narrow down on what the business's brand will be. Because BP is none of these. BP is not outgoing, BP doesn't, but the brand has to express mastery. Does that make sense? Do you see the connection there?
It does make sense, but if I look at caregiver, like my whole goal is to provide smaller entities a level of structure. So that would be my brand. Like I wouldn't come to that if I couldn't provide them that capacity building.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying when you drill down to the core of it, you might see other elements that will give you sense to pause. Because I was tempted to be the renegade, but that didn't work out. But anyway, it's just to express that when you're developing your business in today's world, you gotta think what is going to be the expression for that business It has to aid the marketing, and it has to aid the value to the customer. One of the things we get into trouble is when we kind of decide upon a visual look in terms of logo, and then the customer experiences the business, and the personality and experience don't match up. That's a conflict, and people tend to not spend their money in that circumstance. So good discussion. So we talked about that last week. And just to wrap up, we went over the customer journey map. So the steps that a customer goes through from deciding on a product they're going to buy. And then there's always the post-purchase activity that many companies neglect. And so sometimes they're not building loyalty because they fall short on the after purchase activity. So today we're going to jump right in and discuss more of the infrastructure that's going to support the branding, the sales, the customer engagement. So number one is facility. Okay. This is a big component of the business. And sometimes we shortchange the details in the business planning, and we shortchange documenting the role the facility plays in the business. We got to document, number one, the space, the actual physical address and the space at that address. And the examples I provided here is what's the production space, the showcase, the product showcase, what is the office and staff working space, including if you're going to have employees, where's the break area? And then where's the meeting space or parking? So you got to look at even if it's just your home, you got one room, you got to look at it to see what are all the activities that need to happen in my business to produce the product, create the value, and get it to the customer. The other thing that goes along with space is the virtual or digital space. Sometimes we focus so much on the physical. We're now in a day where we have to think about, the digital space, because some of us might never have an actual physical location outside of our home. And so the digital world will become that welcome mat for our customers. So we got to think about what's the website, what's the platforms that people might enter into to engage with your business. So what's the look and the feel there? We have furnishing and equipment, and you got to think about all areas of the business. What equipment needs do I need to have for all of these activities, and what are other furnishings we need? Okay. When you think about your physical location, try to know other amenities. Like for instance, if you're in a commercial space, do you need a loading dock? If you're certain industries, energy efficiency is a big deal. Do you need solar panels? Do you need alternate forms of energy? Do you need a green certified LEED building to aid in your business? So think about the other amenities of the entire building. And then, so once when you have all that documented, if you're starting up, then you have to think about what's the installation and the setup. And for everything you write down, you want to put down a cost that is associated with that. So we have both the setup, and then whatever you set up, you have to maintain. So we got a regular and preventive maintenance. So any of these areas, if they have equipment or any of these areas have a particular build out, you have to maintain it, and you have to distinguish what supplies do I need to continue the upkeep of that property. I put these set of pictures here on purpose because there have been major companies that we all admire that have started in the garage, the trunk of a car, or some basement or breakfast nook in an apartment or townhouse or whatever the case may be. So even though where your startup position is, look at it the same way as if you had a commercial space. And so what you want to make sure you do, inventory everything, because you're going to need that. That's good for insurance purposes. And you want to always calculate the square footage, if it's a commercial space or in your house, but because you're going to need that for tax purposes if you're home based. And document. Write down everything, down to the color on the walls, if that's important to you, because you might be doing virtual meetings like this, and you might want to have the color associated with your your business on the wall. Like you see, I'm using a virtual background for that in that instance, okay? So your facility is critical, and I provided you a cheat sheet. So in most business plannings, you will do something called a location analysis. I'm providing you an example here, and this is gonna come out as a Word document so that you can use it. And so if you don't know where to start, this can be one way you can start. You can just say, okay, let me start with the location analysis. This is very useful, not only in analysis for your strategy, but also just in terms of writing down what is it about your facility you need to document. And the big picture item I want you to keep in mind is that your location is not just about the physical address. Also think about the geographical area and jurisdiction, because they also play and give you advantages for your business. So think about the neighborhood, city, county, state, and even the region, okay? So let's just walk through this a little bit. So in your location analysis, of course, always start with the address. And if you recall from our legal discussion, everything starts with your business name and the address, right? If you are using commercial space, you want to make sure you document all the contact people, whether that be a realtor, the landlord, etc. Again, you want to calculate the square footage in total, and then the square footage by use. So if half the space is being used for production, you need to notate that. If a third of the space is for meeting and other customer engagements, you need to write that down as well. The history of the location, very, very important, particularly when you talk about your business being in a certain neighborhood or city, because people have perceptions, and it might be totally incorrect, about our neighborhoods, cities, certain streets, and sometimes that perception is not positive. And so if you are not aware of that, you may be neglecting something you need to address in your marketing. You need to indicate the relation to your target market. Is it walkable? Or do they have to drive to get there? How far are you from the target audience that you're selling your products to? What's the traffic patterns for customers and suppliers? Meaning, how easy is it to get to you? Are you on a major street? Are you in a neighborhood where it's low traffic, but it's a lot of twists and turns? So just keep that in mind, because suppliers got to get to you too. If you need a lot of office supplies, but the FedEx guy says he don't know how to reach you, that's a problem, okay? For those of you who have a commercial space, this is key. What's the parking situation? This is a big issue in DC, so you want to be mindful of that. Now, if you have a home-based business, you most likely are not allowed to have customers in your home office, so this area will not be applicable. What's the crime rate? And that's easily can be found on DC police. They track all the metrics. You can look at it. Sometimes the crime rate and the perception of crime are two different things. So be mindful of that as well. The quality of public services. This is something a lot of business owners underestimate, because you need to understand, if something were to happen, God forbid, knock on wood, how quickly would there be police or fire emergency response? How easy is it to get internet access or electricity hookup or whatever the case might be? So you need to look into this seriously to see if it's available, because you'll be surprised. Some areas, internet is not as plentiful as and easily able to get as it is in the city. So just think about that. And a quick story, I had a client I was dealing with. There was an emergency. A customer collapsed in the facility. We called the ambulance. They called 911. It took forever for the ambulance to come. And the staff said it was notorious for that area of the city. So you gotta think about that kind of thing, because God forbid if something happened, you want to respond appropriately. Next is notes on the walking tour. And so I not only recommend you walking the location, but also driving. because your customers can get two different views of your business. Many people think, oh, I have a sign out, people will easily find me. But if you're not looking for it from a customer's point of view and driving and walking it, you might not recognize that it's not easy to find. What's around you? What are the neighborhood shops? What's the zoning requirements? Is the adequacy for the utilities? And many of these things are all going to be positive if you're in DC. What's availability of raw materials? So this goes back to our production system. What's availability of labor? Big issue now. Many companies are having a hard time finding labor. For those of you who don't have employees, may not be such an issue, but what if you need part-time help? If you're doing like a retail pop-up at Eastern Market or something, you got to think about how do you go about finding part-time help? What's the labor rate? What's the housing availability, tax rates, and evaluation of site in comparison to your competition. So there you got to know a little bit about what's going on in your industry so you can compare your location up against what others are offering their customers. That's a long list, but if you use this list, you won't go wrong. Okay, between the two slides, you will not go wrong. Any questions so far?
Dr. Walker, Vet added a question to the chat. Her
Sure.
question is, do you have location analysis suggestions for a virtual location?
Great question. So if you are virtual, which much of my business is also virtual, that some of the things I had to really think about, number one, is who's going to be the web hoster for my website. Because I needed a certain level of responsiveness. I needed a certain type of design for the website. And not all of the website providers are exactly the same. And so I have gone through about 3 different web services. They're all great, but it didn't fit. Once I narrowed down what my brand was going to be about for the business, I ended up having to change so that it had a better look and feel for my business. Also, if you're going to be virtual, you got to think about what's going to be your social media platforms and what you got to first decide which one you're going to use, because you don't have to use them all. You got to decide which one's going to fit with my brand and the value proposition, and then which ones can I customize or create so it is that welcoming mat for my business. So those are some of the things I think about. The last thing, and this kind of piggybacks off of technology, we'll get to later, is the productivity office suite that you use. Now, most people either use Microsoft or the other big one is Google, because if you're sending your clients or your customers electronic information and they have Microsoft, but you use Google and they don't use Google very much, then that might be a little pain point for your customers. So just think about that and how does that work with the type of business you're in and the brand you're trying to establish. But great question. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
I was taking notes. I'm sorry.
I will get to it again in the technology section too, so don't worry. Jimmy, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question. So say, I'm new to this industry, or I want to open up business as I'm building my business model, or for the bank or for a loan or something like that, or just in general, right?
It's for you first.
Yeah.
Planning is always for you first. Go ahead.
Yes, so I'm planning, and where can I, so I don't have any data on what my operating cost is, or how, what the lease is, and is there any public information or any resources that I can tap into to see a similar business in a similar location that already has their financials all drawn up?
Okay, so you're piggybacking on some things we're going to talk about on Thursday. But yes, the answer is yes, but with a but.
Yeah.
A lot of the information you need are in various sources. Here's the problem. You have to dedicate and schedule the time to look at all those sources. Most of you, based upon the type of business you're going to start, there is an industry association related to that type of business. Most of those industry associations, luckily, are either located in DC or in the surrounding area, particularly in Alexandria, Virginia. And you will be surprised, there's an association for everything. So your industry association will have a lot of information. Here's the catch though. You may need to be a paying member to get access to that information. So you need to go back to your budget and say, what will you budget to get access to that information in terms of your memberships? A lot of if you're in DC, and I have to give DC credit, DC government push out a lot of data nowadays. So a lot of the demographic information, economic development information, they have sites that are dedicated to providing you that data. And I'm going to provide you links to many of those resources. So you can get an idea, what's the target market? How many of those customers living around here? So yes, there's access to that. Now, when you get to the financial side of things and you want to do a comparison to maybe a company of your size and location, number of years in business, there are formal financial analysis sources, but I must warn you, they are very, very expensive. I have a list that you can access. Again, you need to check your budget. But I've bought a couple of them. So at the end of the boot camp, if you want to have a one-on-one meeting or send me an email and say, I need some information, I'm readily available to provide you with that. But there are several sources where you can get that comparison of similar businesses, which a lot of your banks and funders will use when they get your business plan. So the answer is yes, there's data out there for everything you want, for most of it. 2 is that you have to dedicate the time to find the sources. And 3, you got to have the budget.
Yeah. My only worry is, it's something that, you don't know what you don't know. So, if I didn't budget for something and then, starting out, you're tight on operating cash already. And then boom,
Right.
you get hit with something that might derail your whole business and take you out of business, right?
Hey, here's the thing. That's the game.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, but here's the thing. It's also a risk to go to college for 4 years and then hope you get a job afterwards. That's a risk too. So everything's a risk, okay?
Yeah.
But you as the entrepreneur, you get the best data you can. You will never have all the information you want. Never.
Okay.
You make a date that when you're going to collect it, you analyze it, you make a decision, and you keep moving. The thing about the entrepreneurial process is that you're going to always have a system where you're going to look back at it and make adjustments for your business.
Can I just add a line item 21, call it Jimmy's slush fund? I was kidding. I get it.
I'm with you. I'm probably in a business that has the lowest barrier to entry because everybody can call themselves a consultant. But I spend a few $1,000s on just professional membership.
Yeah.
One, because my brand is about mastery.
Yeah.
I gotta have access to information, so I can't go without it. And because I have a very broad background, I have to have my medical associations, I have my organization development association, I have my training and teaching associations, and then you add on top of that the business and the management. I wouldn't even talk about the magazine subscription, but I didn't start out with all of them in the beginning.
Yeah.
I just had like maybe 1 or 2. And here's the other kicker. Because the associations, most of them are local or they have a local chapter, email them or call them and say, hey, I'm starting up. Do you have any information you guys can share with me? You'll be surprised what you can get.
Yeah. Cool.
And go to your local banker and say, I'm starting this kind of business. Do you have any data on these type of businesses in this area that you can work with me?
Yeah, I just changed my business model. I'm gonna go into membership management and cold call people like you, Dr. Walker. I'm just kidding.
Good luck with that. In the DC area, you have competition no matter what business type you go into. But that makes this area so attractive to start a business.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now, all of you.
Yeah.
If you can start a business in this area and become very successful, this location is ripe for entrepreneurship. Okay. It may not have the brand of New York
Mhm.
or Silicon Valley. By the way, the Silicon Valley of the East is in Loudoun County. We're a little quieter in how we do things, but the opportunity is there. So don't fret on if you're gonna have all the information, just know you won't. I know
Yeah.
for some of you guys, are A-type personality, high achievers, it's
Yeah.
hard for you to swallow that, but
I mean, I've been doing project management and program management for like, over 15 years, so I'm not too worried about it. But,
Okay.
I just don't want to miss something big, like
you're gonna miss something.
that.
Just
Okay,
if you
I'll
go
set
in
it.
with that attitude,
Yeah.
you're gonna miss something. You do your best, the
Yeah.
stuff will come to you.
Okay,
Trust me.
yeah, that's why I want to do some research.
Entrepreneurship is a head game.
Yeah,
It's a head game, okay?
Yeah.
All right, great,
but I
great
am going to
comments
add
though.
Jimmy's slush fund though, just to hold me off until I
Number
get up.
21, so everybody, when we send the slides, we'll put number 21 on there for Jimmy.
Thank you, Dr.
Anybody else got any other comments? Questions? Great questions so far.
This is Vet. I had one.
Sure,
For
go
the
ahead.
professional organizations and trade organizations that you mentioned, is there a centralized area or a centralized listing that tells you just maybe a sentence or a few descriptive words, what each one's central focus is or what their specialty is?
Great question. Here's the thing. If you Google your industry and association, you'll probably get a lot of results of people who have attempted to curate those lists. So I have a tendency, I do this, about once a year, and I go and I look to see what everybody is saying is the association. Now, some industries, there are only one or two, and you're not going to mess with anybody else. Okay. So, so if you're in retail, you're going to the National Retail Federation. That's it. Now, if you think you're going to do a commercial space, you're going to go to the International Association of Shopping Centers. Yes, there are associations for shopping centers. Okay. So I would start with Google. Google, I know it seems like a trite answer, but it's a great starting point. What you have to do is be very deliberate at looking at the author of the list. If it's another consultant or something like, they might be trying to sell you something, so they might skew the information. And no fault to them or being biased, but if the information is from a government agency or another association providing a resource, I tend to lean more towards those. And then certain things, I do tend to lean more to the consultants because they're out in the field meeting people on a regular basis. But here's the thing, there's no shortcut to just constantly looking. The thing is, you just don't look every day because you'll wear yourself out and you'll never start. So just schedule time, pick a morning that you say you're going to do Google searches. That's it. Once you have the main association, and the list will be fairly consistent on what the main one is, then you can determine, do I need to go to the next level association? Does that make sense to you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And once you get the main one, go ahead and contact them, or at minimum, sign up for their newsletter. You get a lot of good stuff in their newsletters, even if you're not a member. All right, great questions. Anybody else? All right, so in this slide, and the next slide as well, I just wanted to illustrate how the facility links back to all the other systems we've talked about thus far. So, when I say that legal is the starting point, here again, I've listed it number one, and the areas that we're included in legal. So you have compliance, tax, laws, insurance, record keeping, policies, etc. So I'm just going to highlight some key ones, so just so you keep in mind. So wherever your facility is, you got to know if you change your address, you have to go back and notify the government. You may have to change your articles. If you're an LLC or a corporation, you might have to get a new certificate of occupancy. You might have to update your business license. And depending on where you're located, you might need to have other permits. And yes, there is a sign permit. So DC government's been really good at this because you can go to DCRA, that's the main agency that you're gonna deal with, the Department of Consumer Regulatory Affairs. You can call them, you can email and say, hey, I'm moving, what do I need to do? But just be mindful, that facility, that physical address is used as part of the identifier for your business, okay? Also, it plays in for your taxes. You're gonna be taxed based upon the location in the business and or the service area. So if you're serving outside of DC, you may need to register with other entities for tax purposes. This is why you want to talk to a good tax planner. Even the major companies like HR Block, if you have signed up for the additional support and not just using the online version to submit your taxes, they are very good at letting you know this information. You can also call up the local tax agency, so DC Tax Commission, and they will also let you know as well. But DCRA, when you go through the licensing process, they'll also say that in the checklist of to do. Based upon your facility and its location, there's occupational health and safety guidelines. This includes emergency preparedness. Your location also plays key in your insurance because they gotta know what they're insuring. So if you move, you add an address, you gotta update your policies, and that's for liability, the property, because what if there's a damage? And this is something that people don't think about, the car, whether it's a personal car used for businesses sometimes, or if you actually have a commercial car for your business. They're gonna wanna know where is the car garage and where are you driving, because that is going to affect your insurance. Next, record keeping, you gotta keep records on all of this and anything changes with your facility. Of course, this is based upon everybody's business is gonna be different. You gotta establish your own internal policies and procedures. The government is not gonna tell you all the policies you need to have. They think you have figured that out, okay? They're just gonna worry about, do you have the license? Do you have the permits? Did you tell us who's in charge? And then are you paying your taxes? And then if you have employees, they're gonna be all over you with health and safety, okay? So you have to develop these on your own. Now, I've given you an initial list and we'll give you more documentation. So for instance, what's the opening and closing procedures? What are the hours of operation? Do employees need to wear ID? Are there emergency procedures? Et cetera, et cetera. And so you just do them one by one. So one, you start with your legal. Two, you go to your production process and you write down what policies do I need to have to protect the business for the production process. Those two things, that's where you start. And then you constantly add as your business develops and grows. Next, so production, of course, the facility is going to play a big part in production, inventory, and distribution. The facility plays a big part in marketing and branding. Of course, we got to think about the actual place. Are you going to be doing the promotion online in your virtual space? Are you going to be doing the promotion in store in your retail space? That's where facility plays a big part. And then what's the branding, even if it's physical or digital? You got to have the office space for your sales and customer engagement. If you do have customers coming on site, again, this is not applicable for home businesses. Customer visits are mostly not allowed. So you're gonna have some general health and safety rules. Don't worry, between OSHA and Office and Safety at DC government, everything is pretty much laid out, but you got to take the time to go through the regulations, see what's applicable for your business. Also, if a customer is on your site, you have to make sure they're secure and you have to protect their privacy information. So it's both the physical and digital you have to think about. And then research and development. If you're going to expand, do you move the facility as well to other new geographical areas? Or do you expand and start researching what are new target audiences in the same area your facility is located? So facility plays a big part, but people kind of underestimate it and don't really maximize it for their business. Right? So the next few slides, where I just highlighted some examples of things you might need to look into as a result of the initial list. So here's a certificate of occupancy. If you change facility or ownership, you have to update the government. If you have home base, you have to have a home base occupancy permit. If you have a commercial building, if you do any kind of construction, you need to double check to see if you need a permit. If you have a home-based business and you're going to do construction in the area related to your business, you might want to check to make sure you don't need any additional permitting. Of course, if you want to put out a sign, this is not home base. You can't put out signs at home base. You gotta get a permit for that. And then if your business is gonna use a public space, because that's part of your distribution, and it's also part of your place information, you gotta make sure you get the proper permit for that as well. Here, I just highlighted some other insurances you need to think about, and some we already talked about. I just wanna add the business interruption, okay? Because you have to think about natural disaster and other activities, which we're gonna talk about again in health and wellness, but we are in DC. We are a terrorist target. I cannot tell you how many bomb scares I've gone to, being located downtown in a previous job when I was dean. So it's real. Don't underestimate flooding. I don't know, 2 weeks ago, we had a little rainstorm. Old Town Alexandria almost flooded out. I was like, oh my God, can I get home? These are real things to think about. So you just keep them in mind, and then you just one by one research what is applicable for you. Internal policies here, I just kind of highlighted the health and safety standards, use of property policy. And then for the digital space, this will be an example of a policy, terms of use and service. Luckily, there are a lot of templates for this and online services and pro bono services that'll help you generate your terms of use for your website. And you need to have one on your website before you launch the website. Okay, any questions? Thoughts, concerns, issues? Paulden, anything in the chat I need to address?
This is Vet. I put a question in the chat. You can disregard that one. But
Okay.
I do have another question. It's
Sure.
related to some of what you're saying while taking us possibly off topic. Does
Okay.
DC have a cottage industry?
And you say cottage to mean what, like a rental property?
No,
Or
a cottage.
hoteling industry?
No, when we speak of when I'm talking about the cottage industry, I know in some states they will allow you to either work out of your home or work out of a specified area. If you're doing small things like baking pies, making preserves and things like that.
Yeah. So their home-based businesses are allowable for many types of businesses, but not all. You will have to get your home occupancy permit for that. Just know, if you're going to use your home as your business address, that address will be on your documentation with the government. So somebody can look up your LLC and get your home address. So just keep that in mind for your own personal security. So that is allowable. Some industries, you mentioned baking and stuff like that. So the food and beverage, they have other laws and regulations, because that tiptoes into the health world. So that's another set of licensing, just different from a simple business license for DC. But they have broken down the categories when you go to DCRA, Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs, and they show you the different categories of businesses. And then they have a little bit of a question, check the box to kind of guide you. It's not bad. I've seen worse. And that will guide you as to which business license it'll be appropriate for your business. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yep. Just know everything that you submit to DC government in terms of a permit or licensing has a fee. So you don't want to be changing your address every couple of weeks, because that's going to cost you money. Okay. Yes, Miss Tiffany, you have a question?
With that, I just had a thought to keep in mind. I learned with the district also, a lot of small businesses try to use PO boxes, which do not always work in a lot of these spaces, especially with trying to do business with the district.
Very good. Thank you for adding that. Many of the government systems now will actually detect if your address that you input, if it is actually a PO box. So one way to kind of work with that is that you can get a virtual office or a co-working space. Again, there's a fee for that if you don't want your home to be the address. And I started with my home address, and then I transitioned to using a virtual office and co-working space, so that it would no longer be on my business's record. But it is a cost So you have to factor all that in. But thank you so much, Ms. Tiffany, for that. That is a great point to note that PO box is not preferable for many things. Government, a lot of shipping companies don't like it. So just be mindful, you need to have set up for that as well. So thank you. Okay. All right, so let's go into technology and communication. We might run a few minutes over. So I apologize in advance, but we will get through everything. So technology and communication, I put them together because most of the technology we use is either trying to make things easier or faster, or they're aiding our ability to communicate either internally and or externally. So here I started with the hardware, and I want you to make sure you're not, when we talk about the hardware and software, you're not leaving out any mobile devices or any web-based, cloud-based applications, because we no longer install software to our computers like we used to do. So you got to think a lot wider about how you document this. Okay, so number one, I just listed all the major hardware equipment that you might have for your business, from a computer, tablet, phone, desk phone, and yes, even though you might have web-based phone service, you still might have an actual desk phone. You might have an all-in-one printer, fax, and scanner, and you would be surprised who still uses fax numbers. I talked to the IRS this morning about an issue. She was like, do you want me to send you the letter? I was like, sure. And she was like, I can fax it or mail it. I said, what? And she was like, yeah, I know. I was like, okay, well, go ahead and mail it. So I might have to entertain getting another fax number, but just keep that in mind if that's going to be part of your business model. And a scanner always comes in handy to digitize hard documents into soft copy for storage purposes or communicating with your customers. I'm adding two things that you might not think about is that your camera, because many of them have Wi-Fi enabled. Many of you might need to document the service or product you're delivering to your customer. And sometimes you do that at the time of delivery. So the young lady who has the children's playhouse, the bouncy house and stuff, she might want to take photos every time she makes a setup because she can use that for marketing purposes. She can use that as a before and after for her clients, whatever the case may be. So think about the camera. And then because of the Apple Watch, I had to put watch on here because some of us can get email and other notifications through our watch. So we want to include that because that might have additional software. And if that is used for business purposes, you need to talk to your tax planner because you might write that off on your taxes as a business expense. And then because of whatever industry in, you might have other specialized hardware or equipment that has a computer inside it. Any thoughts there? Nope. Okay. So here's the longer list. You got to be mindful of is the software. And I will tell you that the bulk of my technology is on software costs, simply because I test out a lot of stuff, as well as there are many case uses that I need a variety of systems. So I'm gonna start with the easy one, internet. Internet browser is a software, and you need to be mindful of which one your business is going to use, because not all application likes every browser. Some industries actually prefer certain browsers like MS Teams or Zoom might work better on one or the other. And most times those technology companies will tell you which browser they like the best, whether it's Chrome or Firefox or Explorer. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind. You might have to have two, more than one, to run other systems. Some of you might have an intranet, which is a network of computers that is inside the organization, and that's usually more complex businesses, but I thought I would add it here anyway. For communications, you might have apps that will handle all of this, whether it's telephone, email, text, which is growing in usage. You have to still think about snail mail, and you might have electronic to traditional mail, or you might have snail mail to electronic. Some of the virtual co-working spaces, they would actually digitize the mail they receive for you and send it to you electronically. So don't forget mail. Fax, and then QR codes, which have grown in popularity because of COVID. That's the square barcode that you can scan with your phone. Software, most of you will have to have some sort of document management software. And that's either to prepare documents, sign documents, edit documents, either internally or with your clients. So some of the more popular ones would be like Dropbox or Box. Those are the biggest examples. Your social and digital platforms, you got to think about everything for your social media accounts. And then where are you going to store your digital assets? Because your logo needs to be displayed the right way every time. You can't have different versions of it. And so there are applications out there that will store that for you, centralize it in one place. You have your HR related systems, and that's everything from performance management to payroll and benefits. If you have employees at minimum, you're going to have a payroll system. You're going to have a payroll provider because this is very, very complex. And you want to make sure you get it right because you have to take taxes out of your employees' pay, as well as the business has to pay its share of the employee taxes. So you want to make sure you have a system that's calculating that correctly. Most times HR is connected to accounting, finance, and I had to include banking because many of the accounting and finance applications, you can link your bank account. And I do that for invoicing and recognizing payments. So accounting is one of those software that's going to be linked to other software, which can get kind of complicated, but it's just the nature of the game that we're in. Project management and timekeeping. If you are a business that has particularly service-based, you might need to track time because you might be charging by the hour. And you might need to track the start and completion of a job. So there are project management timekeeping. There's legal software, subscriptions to online services that'll generate legal templates. This is how I got my first set of legal templates. And then I had some lawyer friends because, to look things over, but it was very helpful to start off. You got to make a decision on your productivity suite. Are you going to use Google? Are you going to use Microsoft? There's also another company called Zoho, and there are probably a few more that pop up down the road. Some industries like one more than the other, so you might have to use more than one. I actually use Microsoft and Google because I have clients who use Google. We talked about the point of sales and inventory earlier. So this is to track our inventory with the production process and to track sales and correlate that to the inventory. I highly recommend that you have a customer relationship management system. So this is keeping track of your customers' information, their email, their contact, other contact information, name, how often they have bought from you, etc. Because you want to stay in contact with them. Remember, going back to marketing, you got to have a means to contact them. And then there's the website, and then I added here the website add-ons. So you have a website hoster, whether that's GoDaddy or Wix or Squarespace, whichever one. Most of them are all pretty good. But you might have it interfacing with your CRM system. You might have a search engine optimization analytics, and that's from Google Analytics or some other company. So it's measuring the traffic you get to your website. Or you might have some security features to your website, like trusted sites. So you might see on some website, it's a little icon either at the top or the bottom that just says this site is safe and has been checked, but it might be an external service than the company hosting the website. So these are all things you'll have to consider if you're gonna use. Again, you don't start off elaborate unless your industry dictates it or you have the budget straight out the gate. Many of you will have to build this over time. I'm just letting you know that you can build it over time. There's writing software and editing software. So I have been using this a lot lately. So I not only have a grammar check software, but I also use at least 2 other softwares that write content for using artificial intelligence. And so a lot of companies that you get emails from or you get correspondence from, it's not actually a person who sat down and wrote that. They actually have it automated and they have using software to generate even the idea for a blog article or a correspondence. It's a way to let you be more efficient with your time because generating content and copy for your website and social media, can be exhaustive. And so these kinds of software platforms just make life easier. And then you might have other databases, and you may be having to interface with a software from a particular vendor. A lot of times that happens with the shipping company. So you have a FedEx account, or not just the payroll company is another example. So just be prepared. You might have to learn another system that you don't have direct control of, but it's very important for how you organize and run your business. Any thoughts or questions on what we covered so far?
No questions in the chat.
Wonderful. Okay. So we'll just move on to section 2. So we're going to close out this section with management, personnel, and health. Okay. These are not that big, but there's a lot of important stuff on each slide. Even though they're not a lot of slides, but there's a lot of important stuff. So you got to document the management and personnel. Here's where it gets a little tricky. So management is who's behind the business. Remember, we had that whole discussion on session 1 between the difference between a business owner and manager. You will have to document both. If you have an owner, maybe it's a partner, maybe it's even you, but they are not actively doing the day-to-day operation, you still need to document their information. So you want to have the experience, background, qualification of the owners, and key leadership. So try to always have a current resume on file. Why does this become important? If you are going for government contract, many times they'll ask about information on the owner, even if they're not on the day-to-day. They just want to know who's behind the business and what do they have to do? What are they bringing to the table, even if it's just money? So it's good to have a current resume. You want to have position descriptions for those employees that are in management, and you want to define the ownership roles. So if you are just an investor, it means you invested money and you might have, monthly or quarterly meetings to see how things are going, but you're not there day to day. That needs to be documented of what your role will be. You need to have an organizational chart, and you need to have a pay, dividend, or disbursement structure. So owners have rights to the assets and profits of the business. So you need to document if they're working as an owner operator. You got to determine if you're going to get a paycheck from the business regularly. Most times you don't, starting out, because you just don't have enough coming in yet. And you need to decide how often will we disperse profits from the business to each owner. Now, many times it's just going to be you starting out. So you need to decide, are you going to, every month, are you going to withdraw X amount of dollars to cover your personal expenses? So you got to document that, because that needs to be properly tracked. You need to determine the benefit structure, if there is, for any benefits provided. And then you need for each individual employee, if they're in the management, need that, have their files secured. Personnel is very similar. Just a few deviations is that you might have organizational or departmental chart. You'll have pay and benefit structure, but you'll also have to document the employee status, whether they're exempt or non-exempt, because you need to determine, based upon their position, whether or not they are eligible for overtime. If somebody's eligible for overtime and they work more than 40 hours, you then have to pay the overtime rate and not their normal rate, so you got to be careful. You got to make sure that overtime is going to be generating so much income that it's going to cover the cost of the overtime, or you don't want to lose that customer. Most of you won't run into this problem until you're much larger, but just keep it in mind now. So as your company grows, you don't have to go back and try to figure out how I do it. You need to have the employee files. Those files need to have the application to the position and any other hiring documents. So you, as in a small business, and you're going to hire staff, even if it's part-time, you might have a requirement based upon your policy of doing a background check. And yes, there's companies that will do that for you, so you don't have to worry, but there is a fee. And if that's the case, you need to keep all that information secure. You're going to need to make sure the work schedules and the leave requests are all documented. And then also, you got to document performance, rewards, and disciplinary actions. Not everything has to be negative, but if somebody got a great note from a customer that they did a great job, put it in their file. If they are involving themselves in professional development from the industry, if they attended a conference, document it in their file because they can use that information for their own resume, but also when you're submitting your business on a proposal, you can say that you have X number of employees and they got this award and they're doing this professional development. And here are some of the testimonials we've gotten. All of that becomes assets that you can use for the business, but also give the employee a sense of worth and value from the employer standpoint. Okay. And then you need to document the emergent contact. Again, God forbid something happens, you want to be able to know who you should be contacting. Here's a great resource. Many of these items, if you go to the Society of Human Resource Management, they have a lot of resource on this. It's the acronym is SHRM. If you're going to work with a human resources consultant, make sure they are SHRM certified. Laws regarding personnel and management change periodically. So you want to have somebody who's really in tune with the industry, but they have a lot of resources to get you started into documenting all this stuff. So SHRM has been my go-to. And you know what? You might not even maintain a membership every year, but you need to check in with them. Okay. So the next few slides, I just copied some slides from the resource section of session 1, just to remind you that this is all laid out for you. So I just provided examples of employment and labor laws. Here again, if you don't have any employees, you don't have to worry about a lot of this stuff. But the moment you hire somebody, there's a whole other group of compliance and regulations that you must adhere to because there are laws protecting the employee. So be mindful when it's time to hire. Okay, I know sometimes small businesses, they like to hire so people to do stuff that they don't want to do. That's not going to make good business sense. You've got to have a reason for it because they are a cost, not only in payroll, but they are a cost in terms of compliance. So I provided all the examples here and the stuff that you have to comply with. And all of this stuff is readily available on each of the agency's website. Over a certain number of employees, and it's by industry, you have to display certain HR posters. And here's the list of them, and they're all readily available. You can buy them online. But this explains why you might see these posters hung up near your break room or the HR office at your employer, because it's required by law. And so we'll close out regarding health. And I think I have a slide missing, and that would be, yeah. I do have a slide missing on organizational health. So you have to be mindful of not only the facility, occupational health and safety, but natural disasters, emergency preparedness. I talked about how we have some, we're a terrorism target simply because it's DC. You got to think about natural disasters. One thing you have to add, and you can document this in what's called a health and safety plan, there are templates for this, is that you have to add earthquakes. A few years ago, 3 years ago, DC experienced an earthquake. So you can no longer say, oh, I don't have to write about that. Now you do. And earthquakes, they can ruin your building infrastructure. There was some damage to the roads. There were damage to the train lines. So traffic was a gridlock. So you got to think about what are you going to do if there's an earthquake? What are you going to do as a fire, a flood? Unfortunately, in light of recent events, what do you got to do with an active shooter? What is your shelter in place procedure? So for organizational health, you got to think about those things. A lot of outside forces influencing your business. Lastly, you got to think about other elements of organizational health, and that's in terms of the environment. What's the culture? What is your workflow processes? Is it stressful? That is critically important to the performance of the individuals in the business. So think about that a little bit, because most times when you're starting out, you get that first employee, everything's about you, how you like things done, but that might not fit when you hire an employee, okay? And then lastly, from a personal point of view, so the organization needs to be healthy, but everybody in the organization needs to be healthy. And I have a stat on, I think in 2020, worker health costs U.S. businesses about 500, like $50 billion. And so this becomes a budgetary issue. If you don't have healthy employees or you yourself are not healthy, you're not going to be able to perform and build the business. So I just put down some things to think about in terms of like general fitness and conditioning. Get on a strength and flexibility program. Think about your joints and posture. Yeah, of course, injury prevention is going to be key with your occupational safety, but think about nutrition, sleep, your annual physicals to the doctor, counseling, and other personal habits. These are critical that you embed as part of your business strategy to operate the business efficiently. And if you have a current diagnosis, discuss it with your primary care physician. Say to him or her, I'm starting a business. It's going to be stressful. How is that going to impact if I have diabetes, if I have hypertension? Get your money's worth and let them advise you. Here's some things you need to do, or you really need to be mindful of this or that. Okay. Oops. And then lastly, dependent care. So it's not just you have to take care of others. So have a plan. If your child has asthma, you got to manage that. Some of you are taking care of older relatives. You got to think about that if you're going to go into business. And then I just included a lot of other insurance coverages just to help cover the cost of health and staying well for the business. Okay, so I'm about 8 minutes over, but that's all I have for tonight. And just some takeaways. Technology matters. Think about your location and space. Pay attention to management and personnel. Document. And then health is wealth. So any closing thoughts, questions from you guys? How are we feeling? Everybody's just quiet? Okay, I'll take that too. Miss Tiffany, did you go off mute?
Well, as always, it's an abundance of information. I think everyone wheels are spinning. I think that's what actually brings about the silence. Particularly for myself, you see where you at in some of these phases. You think about what you missed in some of these phases, or what you're hopeful for, or actually been attacking that, or all of those things. I think that's what kind of puts us in a shock. But inspired at the same time. So it's not a bad thing.
I'll take it. It's okay. I've had every reaction you can possibly imagine. I just
well,
like
at least for myself, that's what it is. So like even with the notes and the slides, it's like, okay, as we dig into the different layers, it of course in entrepreneur space, it never feel like it's enough time in a day.
Right. So one of the things we're doing this year, I'm carving out some time. So when the boot camp ends, like the location analysis worksheet, I'm trying to create other little worksheets or checklists. So you have some documents to follow and be like, okay, here's a starting point so you can work your way through it. But you just got to start digesting it. Here again, like I told Jimmy, you will not know everything all the time. It's just the nature of the game, but you just want to try to set up a system that you're constantly learning so you constantly can grow the business. So we will have some resources for you, and you'll be able to schedule one-on-one meetings with me. So if you have a particular issue or you want to go over everything again, we can do that on a one-on-one session too. So you're not alone, okay? Okay, so if no one else has any questions or thoughts, I'm glad your wheels are spinning. So great, get the creativity going. I will just say DC needs you, so please go ahead and do what you follow the legacy, the dream, the passion, or the freedom, if that's your choice. So we have concluded session 3, and we have one more session of financial and data. So all of this is going to be pulled together again. It's going to seem a little repetitive, but it's just to reinforce how all of these things are just connected. And you can get through this. And then we'll have a little bit of a planning exercise. And then we'll let you know when the next boot camp is coming up, where we're going to do a deep dive in the marketing. We're going to go a lot deeper than we did this time. Okay. So Baldwin, if you want to take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. I think, you covered everything. Thank you again for always providing such great information and being very informative. Yeah, thank you all. We will see you on Thursday.
Have a good night, everybody.